Hi, everybody. At this time when it feels like every hour, we don't know what's going to happen next, and the world is beginning to feel like a black cloud is surrounding us, I thought I would start out tonight with some maybe good news, at least interesting news. And I'm holding dear Chocolate because Fluffy has his mind game about this, but Chocolate seems to love the light. So for a couple of minutes at the start, before getting into some really serious updates, I'm going to use him as my pal, as my colleague, as I go into a question that I have been getting a lot of emails about, and I see that news is covering it, and that is, will your pet get coronavirus, and can it be shared with human beings? And what I'm holding now with my dear Chocolate is WebMD. Your pet's unlikely to get or give coronavirus, but it isn't a closed and shut case yet. The threat, quote, that the virus causing COVID-19 could sicken pets and spread between them and their owners is low, most veterinarians think. And concerns about pet illness with COVID-19 spreading to owners started in Hong Kong with a case about a dog that belonged to a woman who got sick with the coronavirus. Well, when you get to the question of what exactly did happen in Hong Kong with that dog, it says that the Hong Kong dog is the only known instance so far worldwide where a pet has tested positive for the virus causing the COVID-19. And some scientists are skeptical about the test, but the problem is they're not sure. And, quote, we are still waiting to get more information about whether the dog in Hong Kong was actually infected with the virus or whether it was just present on the dog, but maybe not infectious. What they don't know is, can animals like our pets in the air or by touch get the COVID-19 coronavirus on the pet and transfer it to us? Or maybe even the other way around. So this is not clear, but it does not seem to be a highly likely possibility. And I think that that phrase that we're now beginning to hear, and I'm waiting for somebody to do a song about it, wash your hands, wash your hands. And the reason is we're dealing with a coronavirus that is brand new. The human population has no immunity to it naturally or any other way. And that one of the discoveries that I originally got in Chinese investigations, and now I've just seen in a article today, is that some of the coronaviruses that they apparently have grown in a lab or have been trying to see how long could they stay on surfaces. At least on some surfaces, they think that the coronavirus could last up to 9 days. The average might be less, but it's important to know that it's going through the air, it's going by touch, and therefore that's why washing your hands all the time could possibly cut the chance that you could get it by, they say, 30%. So that is part of this information curve that we're all learning together. And here comes Fluffy Brad. You've got to pick him up. You've got to pick up, you guys. Fluffy, we may only see him once every 3 or 4 months because he turns it into a game, but the very fact that he came on his own right now, I've got to show them. Look at these two guys. Oh, life. Loving life. I love you both so much. And we're going to learn together about what's happening in this planet and how we can help all of each other learn more so we hopefully don't get sick. And because I want to move on to some other material I wish I could keep them and rock with them, and you guys get your dogs and we could all have an animal get together. But I'm going to put them down, thanking Fluffy for finally, after I think it's been 3 weeks, coming on his own. Bless your heart. I love you guys. All right. You go play. Now there is another nice part that I've learned today that I wanted to at least start out, in addition to that maybe pets aren't that much of a worry. And that is, good, thank you. We're in this COVID-19 pandemic in which right now at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time in Albuquerque, the current number of cases around the world that have been reported as of right now are 95,481, expected to exceed 100,000 probably by the end of this week. The number of deaths reported are 3,285, and the recoveries, 53,688. And something else that was a surprise to me in terms of its clarity. NASA and the European Space Agency released satellite images from the Earth Observatory Pollution Monitor. On the left, we're looking at nitrogen dioxide pollution over China on January 1st to January 20th. On the right is an Earth Observatory image of China from February 10th to the 25th. See how the air has cleared. After the largest and most strict lockdowns in human history of at least 100 million people in Hubei province and Wuhan and the surrounding region because of the COVID-19 coronavirus. And here is what happened over Wuhan, a city of 11 million people with hundreds of polluting industries and thousands of vehicles burning gasoline. The top row of gold and brown, thick air pollution was a year ago from January 1st to February 25th, 2019. So that's last year. This year of 2020 is the bottom row of mostly pale, clear blues, after the air cleaned when Chinese authorities shut down transportation going into and out of Wuhan in order to contain the spreading coronavirus. And now the coronavirus is here in the United States, moving state to state, sort of like popcorn popping. The current number of confirmed cases and deaths of COVID-19 in America are 159 cases and 11 deaths in 16 states. I just learned this evening that a man in his 30s has been hospitalized in Bergen County, New Jersey. Los Angeles County has announced 6 new cases and has declared a state of emergency. In New York State, an attorney in his 50s appears to be the first case there of what's called community spread, when they don't have any source. They don't know how he got the COVID-19. That means he either breathed the coronavirus in from the air through his mouth, nose, or eyes, or touched a contaminated surface and his hands got to his face. He is in critical condition at New York Presbyterian Columbia University Irving Medical Center. The COVID-19 coronavirus has now spread to 84 countries and territories around the world. As this Business Insider headline today stated, quote, "The flu and the new coronavirus have similar symptoms, but the coronavirus is far deadlier." In fact, COVID-19 is 34 times as deadly as seasonal flu because its current estimated death rate is 3.4% compared to 0.1% for flu. This graph of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention comparing flu versus COVID-19 death rate by age illustrates how COVID-19 is 34 times more deadly, especially from ages 50 on up, with 14.8% of people in their 80s who contract COVID-19 dying, compared to only 0.83% of people 65 and older dying from flu. The spreading coronavirus is causing dominoes to fall in the world drug industry supplies. Chinese factories have been the major world supplier of antibiotics and vitamins, but with the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic raging, those factories have been closed for weeks. Now, India, with its huge pharmaceutical industry, is facing a huge supply problem because the ingredients it uses to make pharmaceuticals mostly originates from China, the nation hit first and hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic. But that's why Indian authorities yesterday, on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020, quote, ordered India's vast pharmaceutical industry to start exporting 26 drugs, to stop exporting 26 drugs and drug ingredients, mostly antibiotics, without explicit Indian government permission, close quote. That means the supply chain has been pretty much curtailed. Also, today's India Fitch ratings that follows the pharmaceutical industry for India reports, quote, if this trend of diminishing drugs and drug ingredients continues beyond March 2020, and the coronavirus spreads to other regions in China and around the globe, we expect a disruption of the supply chains and everyone will be hit, every sector, close quote. So it now seems that every hour of every day comes more and more news about the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm afraid that we are in this for some time to come. At Earthfiles, I will keep posting breaking news about the evolving and dangerous new coronavirus when there are new updates to give. But I also want to bring to you news about Earth mysteries, and tonight I have an update on the still unexplained drones in Colorado and Nebraska. In December 2019 to January 2020, local, state, and national news media like this NBC December 31st, 2019 report headlined, "Mysterious drone swarms over Colorado and Nebraska unleash origin theories," meaning where are they coming from? The bizarre light formations have people asking who's behind them. The government? A drug cartel? Aliens? Who's controlling them? Those headlines were reinforced by several cell phone videos from residents puzzled, even alarmed, by the lights in the night skies, flashing white, green, or red, or sometimes red, steady lights. Nebraska Angus rancher Alex Peterson told me he saw large, lighted aerial objects that he thought were the size of 8-armed octocopter drones. Octocopters can fly only for about 15 to 20 minutes before they must land for battery recharge. But Alex said the large drones that he saw over his ranch stayed in the same spot for 2 to 3 hours without landing for battery recharges. So what were they? By January 6, 2020, there was a private meeting in Brush, Colorado, of officials from the FBI, the Federal Aviation Administration, the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, the U.S. Army, the Colorado Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and sheriffs and law enforcement from many counties in northeastern Colorado and southwestern Nebraska. The meeting was off limits from the public and most media, and the subject was the disturbing invasion of unidentified aerial drones and strange lights that some residents did record or photograph. After the private meeting, the Phillips County Sheriff's Office in Holyoke, Colorado, posted on Facebook, quote, A strategy meeting was held today in Brush, Colorado, with federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies regarding the drone issue. None of the agencies can confirm that the drones are malicious. A task force has been organized, and we are asking for your assistance. Specifically, we are looking for the command vehicle. We are looking for a closed box trailer with antennas or a large van that does not belong in the area. If you see anything that resembles this description, please call the Phillips County Sheriff's Office, and they gave a phone number. Then, only 48 hours later, the Phillips Sheriff's Office mysteriously took down their Facebook statement and posted, quote, "No, we rescind," meaning take back. "We don't want you calling our offices," close quote. No further explanation. So what was happening from December to January over the ranches and fields of eastern Colorado and western Nebraska? I took my question to Richard Hoffman. He is an information technology systems analyst. He works for the U.S. Army Materiel Command at Redstone Army Arsenal. He is in the By-Light Division in Huntsville, Alabama. Now 68 years old, Richard Hoffman has been interested in UFO phenomena since 1965 when he was 13 years old. He kept that passion alive while serving in the U.S. Army and also directing UFO investigations for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. Then he and 4 other UFO investigators decided in 2016 to focus efforts in their own organization called the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, also known as SCU. Their goal is to be a scientific think tank to study unidentified aerospace phenomena, such as this 2004 Nimitz Navy pilot's gun camera video of UFOs. When Richard Hoffman and his SCU colleagues heard about the unsolved drone mystery in Colorado and Nebraska and the confusing statements coming from state and federal authorities, one of their members, Doug Johnson, decided to file Freedom of Information FOIA inquiries with military and intelligence agencies. What SCU knew, but the general public might not know, is there have been repeated military reports of unidentified drones threatening our nuclear missile sites and some military bases since at least 2017.
There's been a lot of base intrusions of unknown objects that are coming in over our military facilities. So what are they? Who are they? What is that about? There have been intrusions or instances where people are flying drones around perimeters of military bases. Now you're suddenly seeing this large amount of these drones that are appearing at different bases. I'm talking about Lawrence Livermore Labs. I'm talking about also experiencing them around some of our nuclear facilities. That's a defense concern. And people don't know what they are, just the same as these drones. They don't know if they're friendly or they're not friendly or whose they are, or even if they're drones. I mean, what are they? The FBI's out collecting and reporting it up to their channels. You've got a lot of people trying to find out where they're coming from, and we don't get too many answers.
And why did they put out that public message, there's nothing here, there's nothing to it, go away?
Well, I think that it's pretty much similar to the entire UFO situation. I mean, how many times have they washed their hands of that? You know, they don't want to get engaged with that. Take a look at what's going on right now. The Navy is the only one that's stepping up and saying that they're going to take reports, right?
2 weeks ago, in mid-February 2020, SCU's Doug Johnson received a reply to his FOIA request, followed by a story on February 24th at the War Zone under the headline, Internal Air Force emails show confusion and concern over Colorado's mystery drones. Several heavily redacted emails were released in mid-February of internal communications by the 90th Security Forces Group and the Public Affairs Office at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming. The 90th Security Forces Group provides security for both F.E. Warren and the 150 Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles operated by the 90th Missile Wing. Even with all the names redacted, the FOIA-released emails show genuine confusion and concern about the drone mystery. Here are some examples. From B6 blank. I have no explanation for what B6 blank means, but it probably is legal authorization, no name, no name, no name. Sent Tuesday, December 31st, 2019 at 1:32 p.m. to B6 blank. Copy B6 blank. Subject, all caps, FYSA, which is a military acronym that means for your situational awareness. F. Warren Air Force Base, drones in southwest Nebraska, Perkins County. Next line, B6 blank. Next line, all caps, BLUF, which is a military acronym for bottom line up front. And that up front bottom line is drone swarms are being reported by locals in northern Colorado and southwestern Nebraska. Sheriff's deputies are responding and seeing the drones as well. They reported seeing a mothership, in quotes, 6 feet in diameter, flanked by 10 smaller drones, some fixed wing, some not. When deputies follow the drones, they clock them at speeds of 60 to 70 miles an hour. The drones also appear to be dropping or picking up things that look like potatoes, in quotes. Then BF blank. The FBI in Colorado and the Joint Terrorism Task Force, also known as JTTF, in Omaha, which is Nebraska's Offutt Air Force Base, are currently looking into the sightings. Perkins County Sheriff's Office in southwest Nebraska has 3 of the potatoes frozen in storage and will likely transfer them to the FBI for analysis. The FAA is sending an agent to Colorado this upcoming weekend to help investigate and handle the news coverage. I will update you when I have more. Signed V over R B6 blank. Now, if anyone in this Earthfiles audience tonight knows anything about what the potatoes, in quotes, are, would you please, and knowing that they went to the FBI for analysis, would you please email me, or you can use Proton Mail or Hard Mail or FedEx. If anybody knows what these potatoes, in quotes, that would go to the FBI might be in the mystery of the drones, whatever they are, in Colorado and Nebraska, I sure would like to hear from you. But now let's go on to the next FOIA released email. It's FOIA released and dated January 7th, 2020 at 1:19 p.m., the day after the big January 6, 2020 meeting of law enforcement with all those federal authorities. The subject line says, quote, non-DOD source drone observations for 6 January 2020. Who it's from or to are both blanked out by that code B6 and B5. But the words that are visible state, quote, I spoke with the B6 and BF blank this afternoon. Last night, January 6th at 20:30 hours, which is 8:30 p.m., he himself, whoever made this drone report, witnessed approximately 40 drones traveling west of Arcadia, Nebraska. Exact address where he saw the drones is 46508 800th Road in Arcadia. B6 blank said, One large drone had red and white flashing lights, and the rest of the swarm were small drones with bright white lights. He only observed the lights and he did not hear the propellers. One resident reported a large drone hovering over a cell phone tower, 1/2 mile west of Arcadia. B6 blank said he would have a deputy patrol the area around the tower tonight. You can reach him at B6 blank. The second paragraph, quote, B6 and B5 blank observed 6 drones last night at 23:30 hours, 11:30 p.m., near Road 462 around the area of the Valley and Custer County line in Nebraska. He said Custer County received multiple reports last night of drones, to include a swarm of 30 following a mothership, in quotes. B6 blank can be reached at B6 blank. Third email. Then, an hour later at 2:18 p.m., here is a follow-up email to the 30 drones following a mothership that same night. B6 blank. A sighting of approximately 40 drones occurred last night. No other significant updates, close quote. Well, the assumption is that the night of January 6th, the same day of that big meeting off limits in Brush, Colorado, off limits to the public and to most media, that both the 40 drones traveling near Arcadia, Nebraska, were a different sighting from 30 more drones near the Custer County line. If that interpretation is correct, it means that these authorities, military and government, had reports of 70 drones in the Arcadia, Nebraska, Custer County line on the night of January 6th, after they had the big task force meeting in Brush, Colorado. Now, the fourth email. To B6 blank, copy B6 blank, subject non-DoD source, drones in Colorado, B6 blank. We just discussed with B6 blank origins of drones in Colorado, but F.E. Warren's OSI team, that's the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, the OSI team sent a representative to the task force meeting on Monday, January 6th. I spoke with the agent who attended, and he is waiting on the notes from the official note taker. As soon as I have those details, I will send them your way. We also spoke with B6 blank this morning to get an update. OSI PA, I assume that's OSI Public Affairs, is still uncertain about who the drones belong to, and it is currently under investigation by multiple federal agencies. We will continue using our statement below for media queries, and if necessary, direct them to OSI Public Affairs. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will keep you updated as we gather more information. Signed V over R, B6 blank. Now, a fifth and last email. From B6 blank to B6 blank, copy B6 blank, subject, just trying to confirm about Colorado drones. AF/A10, which means, in military acronyms, Strategic Deterrence and Nuclear Integration. AF/A10 reached down and asked for confirmation that we, in all caps, AFSGC, which is Air Force Global Strike Command headquartered in Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana. We are not flying the drones in question. I know there has been press reporting, but I figured I would get A10 direct confirmation from the SMEs, another acronym which if you look up military acronyms, you will find there's something like 18 SMEs, all the same letters, all caps, with 18 different meanings. And the one that's closest to possibly being the correct one here is either Senior Subject Matter Expert or Military Engineering. And thanks from B6 blank.
So much of this stuff is mystery. The military is a mystery to a lot of people, even the people in it. And so you can't expect that the public is going to necessarily understand it any better either. And because it is so concerned about things, it probably sometimes is oversensitive about wanting to tell stuff, because we all know that like every minute, every hour, the Chinese are trying to infiltrate the systems that I work on.
And because we still don't know exactly what the truth is, were China, Russia, some other country testing our arsenals, testing our alarms, testing us? Or our own government doing tests with drones and doing them in the real world and not wanting anybody to know, because if people knew, then it would not be the real world. Any and all of that is possible, plus other ideas. But as we are now in March of 2020, in a year that is starting out so bumpy, some people are calling it a dripping apocalypse, I think that what I'd like to do, even though I love your questions, I just wanted to go one more step, begging for your patience, because I've said for the last 2 or 3 weeks that I was going to start sharing with you all maybe a letter, maybe not more than 2, but I would like to do it on every show. And the one that I have picked out tonight, it came to me on January 21st, 2020. And the reason that I'm picking it out tonight is that when you hear this, this is a down-to-earth human being, a fellow human being, on a planet now in which we have coronavirus threat, confusion over drones, no truth about us not being alone in the universe, more and more TV news about unidentified aerial phenomena or aerospace phenomena. More and more people are coming forth, like to me, with typed, they want to be official, of some of the most astounding UFO ET experiences. And I've also promised that I would never give out a name or a location of anybody unless I had written permission. And tonight, I wanted to share this because this individual, who I've communicated with more than once, has no axe to grind, has not really, her attitude is, I would like to share this because you have shared out-of-body human abductions, hybrids. You have talked about it on your Earthfiles live stream. And she said, I would just like you to hear. And what I'm going to do is start tonight with the idea that on each show, at least one letter, to give you all a feeling in this turbulent time, in this chaotic time, in this, we don't know exactly where 2020 is headed, that the universe is big, it is complex, that the timelines, other dimensions, even other universes. There's something that refreshes the mind when you start thinking about what we might truly be in. And that here is the experience of a woman when she was a child onward. In my childhood, out of body, I feel maybe I was limited to the front yard by something unknown. As if God keeping me safe to my unknowns. And I thought of my own experience. That voice, that thought voice that came when I was rising up to that cottage cheese ceiling when I was 6 years old and wanting to get into whatever that light was in that cottage cheese ceiling. And every single time, night after night, this voice, protective voice, no, danger, you cannot go through. She's saying she was limited to her yard, as if God keeping me safe to my unknowns. I would have been 8 because it was summer. Then, at the age of 10, I had several strange episodes. It would be at night while I was in bed. I shared a room with my little sister. I noticed that my thumbs would go numb and I would whisper, "They are coming." I told her about my sister, about them. There was a night light in the bathroom down the hall, and the room would start slowly getting more black with darkness. It was so dark that I could no longer see the night light each time this happened. I wasn't frightened of the dark, but it became darker, and then a heavy weight would cover my body. I was having a hard time breathing. I would wake up the next morning not knowing what happened. I explained to my mom, and of course, she said I was having a vivid dream. I told her it would happen night after night, the same thing. But after a couple of years, this started happening to my little sister. She would spin the same details, and Mom believed her. About this time, I was having new experiences and new beings. I was 12. This would happen at night. My thumbs would tingle, and whoosh, I was in a ship, standing in front of 3 grays. As soon as I met them, each time I was excited, I would greet them with, "Hi, hi guys." 2 would look at each other and sort of smile. They looked like they were older than your typical pictures of grays. They looked a little tan colored, beige colored. I only remember bits and pieces. About 3 occasions, I was taken by planets and somewhere else in the universe. I had a seat beside a round window that wasn't much bigger than their heads. Now, for people who might think that somebody was describing a dream as a teenager, the number of people in the abduction syndrome who have been taken in a craft, they say it's solid, they are taken to another planet, sometimes they're shown pyramids, sometimes they're shown multiple suns. There are so many cases. This is not the only one. Then she's looking down and she sees cylindrical skyscrapers. And she can see food in something like windows. And she doesn't understand why the food appears to have small lights around the top of what she perceives as food that people are eating. Then she says, in these cylindrical buildings that she's seeing on another planet, it alternates color, that every other level was purple. And she understood that the purple was some kind of parking for some kind of craft or vehicle. And then, after that, the ship headed back out into space. And the next morning, so excited, I drew Mom a picture of this. And then she said again, it was a vivid dream. And I ran outside to my favorite swing and I cried, but then I had a calming sort of feeling and voice that came over me. I heard a voice and it simply said, "We'll be back." Then, from about 12 to 14 years old, I was visited. I would wake up feeling odd. I wasn't allowed to remember, which made me angry. but I knew something had happened. I would end up with sore spots on my arms or legs, and sometimes I would have a little red triangle spot on my stomach or hand. I must have personally had 20 or 30 cases of a red triangle on somebody's ankle, on their arm, on the front of their stomach, on their back. I guess the worst possible interpretation would be a brand. The best might be some identification that maybe carries a computer code like self-activating software that relates the beings to this human. She said, I was taken back to a different ship one night, and I was laying on a table with some type of thin plastic covering. I was exhausted. There were sounds. I get the feeling that someone was looking at me. I turned my head to the left, and there she was. Her eyes were meeting mine. She was tall and thin, I'm guessing 5'6" to 5'8". She had a big head. But the shape was a little human, just bigger. She had big, roundish, more greenish hazel eyes, like my eyes. She had long, straight, blonde hair that was very thin and very spotty. And then I knew. She was from my eggs, but she was not mine. She came to let me know. For a moment, I was so excited, and then I felt sad that I couldn't go with her, and she could not stay with me. I awoke the next day. I cried so hard, but I know they do not have emotions like we do. But that is also the trait that makes us human. I'm still visited from time to time to teach me something, but I go along for a wild ride through the universe or to see my stepdaughter as I think of her now. If I hadn't received variations on this letter from many people who, it might be a 5-page letter that goes into even more detail, I just felt that there was an arc from out of body as a child through all of these different interactions with something from her point of view that comes from another planet, and that the hybrid, the whole issue of hybrids, and what is the truth on our planet. And as we get up in the morning and we are faced with what is the truth behind the coronavirus source, what is the truth behind all of the questions that we have about this new disease that is hurting people, a lot of people, and we have probably a long road to go in this country. To just remember how broad the bell-shaped curve of human experience is on this planet in relationship to manipulation by something else. And that, as she said at the end of her letter, it was her recognizing a hybrid. She was recognizing some of her genetic material in another being who had no emotional feeling, that she understood with better clarity what makes us, Homo sapiens sapien, perhaps so special, maybe singular in this universe, is that we have a heart and a soul, and we have a lot of emotion, which is both good and bad. But that I firmly, firmly believe and fight for the right for you, for me, for her, for all of you who have written your incredible letters about your own interactions with other intelligences. that there is something about considering the bigger whole, not just the coronavirus, not just seismic, not just all the political upheaval, that we may all be part of something that is so much bigger, and that there is a reason why we have souls that are strong and seem to be tied to love and light when they are allowed. And on that note, on this night of so much choppy news, I'd like to see if there are comments or questions. And Peggy, you're on. That sound you hear is when we turn on the speaker to get Peggy.
Hi, Linda.
I'm right here.
Okay, great. Tonight, I'd love to start off by saying thank you to some super chats. So thank you. The list is long. Thank you to Truth Soldier, David Goldridge, Terry M. Hart, Moverling 5, Moonbird, Carly Mids, Mark T, Cat Chaser, Firth, Grimm's daughter, and Stephen Erling. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. That's a reflection of the humanity we're fighting for, is all of the texture, all of the complexity. I love it. Thank you so much.
I have a question here that pertains to the drones, and someone was wondering if the drones could be related to the Dragonfly drones you reported several years ago.
It's a very interesting question, and I think I can easily answer this one right off the top. If anybody had videotaped or photographed anything that had those wires that went up an estimated 30 to 50 feet, the ring at the front, underneath all those wires, tapering off. So there were a lot of different estimates about the length of these long tails, with very strange symbols in boxes. They literally look like three-dimensional box shape that had all these symbols on them, as if part of the software, perhaps propulsion of these Dragonfly drones. And I came up with that name, Dragonfly drones, because right from the very beginning in 2007, that's what they reminded me of. And the wires coming up, the circle in the front, and that long tapering body. It is so distinct, that shape. And for those of you who know about my work in 2007 to 2012 about the Dragonfly drones, you know that I've done dozens of reports. And if you contrast that to what I was able to report with Alex Peterson in Hagler, Nebraska, and he would be using his rifle scope that had infrared, the shapes were clearly round in his case. Other people had patterns of round lights. There was nothing, unless somebody wants to send me a photo or a video that I haven't seen, there was nothing that would fall into the category of a huge ring with this, like a fountain of wire coming up 30 to 50 feet out of the ring, and then this long tapered body with those strange boxes on the sides that had all the symbols on them. And there were symbols also under this long body. There were symbols that were photographed. That's completely different, I think, than to what was being photographed, seen with eyes. And another thing, what I felt was powerful, and you tell me, let me know tonight, comments to Peggy. I would love to hear immediate feedback. I thought that those 5 emails were strong in this way. Those were internal emails that were obtained only through Freedom of Information Act, and they were the only ones, along with others, but the ones that I picked out, where they are talking between internal military dialogue that is, they clearly do not know what is there. and they are clearly concerned about missiles. And all of that says this was not something that was identified to the military that work in Cheyenne, which is not very far from where all this was going on, F.E. Warren, and the fact that in Barksdale, Louisiana, that there was that overseeing by that strategic command group. So the Dragonfly drones, they emerged in 2007 for the first time. 2008, I was reporting about people sending me information all the way up to around 2012, maybe 2013. This drone mystery had a beginning in December of 2019. And it basically went for 8 weeks with a lot of chaos about what was happening, and a lot of photographs and a lot of videotapes. Well, photographs meaning things far away, nothing definitive, I don't think. And nothing, not even an eyewitness describing the Dragonfly drone body. So that word drone, it's used because it means artificial intelligent craft. They are AI in the sky. Even the Dragonfly drone from 2007 onward. And that's the only common denominator that I know. But I would be so grateful if there's anybody listening who has information about the Dragonfly drone all the way back to 2007, or has any true inside military whistleblower information about why suddenly, after all of the big meeting on January 6th and putting out seemed like a very intelligent and civilian request for feedback through the Phillips County Sheriff's Office and others, 48 hours, all taken back, all rescinded. In fact, as Alex Peterson said to me, it was like they said, "There's nothing here, go away," when clearly there was a lot there. What happened? Where did it go? So that's why I don't think it was the classic Dragonfly drones, but I'm sure open to somebody sending me information if you have it. How about another question?
Somebody asks, do you see any disruptions to your schedule of conferences and speaking engagements as a result of COVID-19?
Already. I was to go to TV production leaving tomorrow, and that has been postponed. I know that there have been discussions about whether some of us on upcoming cruises, will they go forth? Right now, in April, we're planning the Ancient Aliens cruise still out of Orlando. You can read about those details at my Earthfiles.com on the website on the right. It has conferences and appearances. Go there and you can check over what I've got for 2020. We're not sure about what is going to happen. This new coronavirus, as I read today in what I thought was a very intelligent article, where they're saying, this is not SARS, this is not MERS, this is not Ebola, this is not influenza. This is a pathogen all of its own. That another startling statement that was made today. There is some evidence that people can carry this coronavirus and perhaps be contagious for 4 to 6 weeks before anything. Wow, if you go back 6 weeks from now and what was happening in China, and then start looking at how the popcorn Popper is coming up with cases now, as the United States is clearly, there have been cases in Washington and California and New York that had to have been somewhere, maybe in Washington, they think they might go back a month or maybe even more. That makes this really harder to understand and to know exactly what would the impact be to a huge group of people if they were all together when everything was innocent 4 to 6 weeks ago. They knew nothing. And then case, because the maturation or whatever happens in this coronavirus kicks in, and then everybody starts getting sick. So this delay on exposure to actual symptoms. This is a coronavirus that seems to have a sort of a unique category, but I'll tell you some things that I have been reading that I think are worth passing along. The coronavirus is RNA. Remember that, it's not DNA, it's RNA. So it has a very thin surface. And even though it is programmed to apparently do a lot of damage to our lungs, if it is exposed to heat, high heat, it'll kill it, which may be why the body, the natural human body defense, wants to kick in to high fever once a person becomes symptomatic. And what I read something that said, for the next month or 2 or 3, if you can, as much as you drink, drink hot. Drink a lot of hot tea, drink a lot of hot coffee, drink a lot of hot everything to keep your throat constantly being exposed to high heat that you can take. And also, another thing that was suggested is a lot of people stay away from the sun because they think it's going to hurt their skin. Well, maybe being out into the sun, literally going outdoors into the sun on purpose, now would be a good time to do that with this coronavirus, that apparently it can spread, what the distance it can spread, they say maybe up to 10 feet, but it can spread through the air and by touch, and that in some cases, apparently it's been measured as surviving on a surface for up to 7 to 9 days. So that's why people do the elbow, open doors with your elbows, take the Clorox wipes with you to the store. Don't open anything anymore until this is over. Don't open it unless you've got something that's between your hand and whatever you're touching. And the elbow bump on doors that can open by elbows. Trying to keep your hands as free of contact with things that could carry this as possible. And it reminds me so much when I was, this would have been 1985, and I was in Africa. I've mentioned this before, probably a year or so ago on my live stream. I was hired by UNICEF to do a documentary film for them called New Hope in Child Survival. And my mission was to go to Ethiopia and meet doctors coming from Harvard and some other universities to study a new cholera strain. And at the first gathering, the doctor said, "Linda, do yourself a favor. Treat your hands as your enemies and your shoes as your enemies. Don't touch, don't open anything, and if you can, for the entire time that you are filming, don't eat or drink. Wait until you get back to the hotel each night." And that was the Hilton, or the Corguino. There was a Hilton. This was the Corguino Hotel, I believe, something like that. And that hotel was designed for Westerners. And so they had hot soup, and they did a lot of things that some other places they didn't. Well, if somebody had told me that I could, for 10 days, each day go 9 hours without food, drink, or anything, I would have thought that impossible. But I did. I lived it. So did my crew. They were from Africa. And we would be in cafeterias where children were walking with diarrhea and vomiting and never got sick. And that was the big thing, was keep your hands as your enemy. And I know people in the United States don't like that idea. We pride ourselves, and should, on trying to be as free as possible. But now we need each other. We need each other to help each other. We need this nation to work together, not fight each other. And this is a special time. And I hope all of you will follow these rules that you need to around this dangerous coronavirus, and that we will see these lines of cases and deaths start doing this, and then it will be over. Hang on to that. But you've got to be intelligent, and you've got to be very careful while this is exploding like popcorn, because it will probably end up in every state to some degree. And we've just sort of begun. And I don't say those words to be afraid. I say that we just have to face the reality of what is happening and be intelligent and protect yourself. What about one more? Peggy, ask in that flowing, moving chat now. Was this sort of longer edition with these pieces of interest to everybody? I would like to know. Is she there?
I put it out there, but I've been in the chat all night, and it has been some great support being shown by our regulars who are always here, and a lot of new people I saw as well.
Good. Well, I try to have it be different a little bit each program. And tonight, it felt like with the drone update and what was going on in coronavirus, that I would use up at least that first half hour, and that I would love to know if it's okay with you guys to do that, because there's just going to be so much to report. I've got files right now: astronomy, what kind of universe are we in, all sorts of exciting things, the whole issue about Mars and Musk going to Mars. These are all things I would like to open up as we go forward in next Wednesday and the Wednesday after and so forth. And some of them take longer, and sometimes I will just do a short news intro and then ask Peggy to get into the Q&A with you guys. So for those of you who are new, we kind of change it up each week. And right now, I would love one more question.
Hi, Linda. Somebody wanted to know, have you ever used a channeler or some kind of psychic for any of your research?
Yes, that's an excellent question, and I'll tell you exactly why. It was during the animal mutilations when I was investigating in 1979 to 1980. And I got a call from, it was a male investigator, not in my state of Colorado, it was in another state, and said, I know of a very excellent police investigator, a psychic, but that her specific expertise is picking up things, handling things, and then she gets movies, and that Anthropology and Archeology departments have used her to flesh out pottery and bones. And it was very, very interesting. And I learned that in Adams State in Colorado, was this woman that he mentioned had in fact been helping the archaeology and the anthropology departments. So I called her. She said, if you can send me a little piece from one of these mutilations, wrap it up in plastic, she said, I'd like to be able to hold it. So I did that. And now I'm going to tell you the piece of hide, why would I have it? And how could I get this? When A Strange Harvest was broadcast May 25th, 1980 as a 90-minute evening special on the CBS station in Denver, within, I believe it was only 2 weeks after the broadcast, that there are headlines about a horse that is found in Colorado Springs. And it was a local Colorado Springs reporter who went out and did a discussion with this rancher, because here was the byline or the subheading. The horse looks like it should get up and walk away. It is, and the rancher said they done embalmed him. They, aliens, have done embalmed him. That was a direct quote. So I called up the reporter, and they knew me. I was pretty well known in Denver for the documentaries and the live shows that I did in Denver, and she said, oh yeah. So she gave me the name and the phone number, and I called up the rancher. And he invited me to come out with, I told him I wanted to bring a colleague who was a uranium miner, and that what we would do is bring black lights. Well, we set up a whole series of black lights. And when we got there, he was right. By then, the horse had been dead for something like 18 days. It was like perfect. There were no maggots. There were no flies. It was a beautiful horse, except that two things. The penis and testicles, like you would do excised tissue, this long, this long, this long, this long, this long. There's a pattern, went right across the penis and testicles. I've never seen anything like it. Absolutely no blood, everything was dry. And when we turn on the black light at night, I believe it was this left eye was gone, but what showed was a perfect rectangle, 490 degrees, perfect, of a solid orchid color as you see under black light. And I asked the rancher if he could take his hunting knife and cut that rectangle out for me so I could use it. I wanted to take it to a veterinarian pathologist. I wanted to see if this would prove hemoglobin had been cooked, collagen had been cooked. All of it was proved. And I had that rectangle of tissue when I talked with that psychic who was helping anthropology and archaeology. And so I took a piece off of that. It's that rectangle. She had it for maybe a week, week and a half, and I was still at the station. I remember getting the phone call in my office at Channel 7 in Denver. And she said, Linda, could I ask you a question? She said, I'm going to write you up a report. But she said, I hold it, and I keep getting the feeling of something there with intelligence, not the horse. There's something else. She said, I would actually say that there are other beings and they're not human, and I feel awkward. She said that. I feel awkward in saying that to you. But I think that there are other beings and they're not human. And she said, "You never mentioned this." But she said, "I just can't get out of my mind that somehow there is a huge white light." Was there any report of a huge white light? 1 month later, another investigator working with a male psychic called me and said he was doing a parallel track on using psychics. I went through the same exact thing with the male psychic using a piece of that rectangle from the horse. He calls me at the station a month after she did, and she gave me an amazing report. The first words were to me, "Linda, was there a fire there around that horse?" He said, "I just keep seeing bright, and it isn't just all white, there's orange and red, and that's why." Was there a fire there where that horse was found? Well, that is, and there was much more. Both of them gave me reports. She gave me a written report that I have in a file in someplace that goes back to 1980, that spring. And he gave me his only on the phone. But the similarities were so close. They both talking about light, fire, and he said, there's something there, and he said it's not human, but it seems to have, and he said it has 2 reasons for being there. I'm remembering him. One is to get tissue, and the other is for sustenance. Sustenance. So it's complicated. And that reaching out to people in remote viewing and to people who have these talents of working by touching pottery and touching skin and touching things, they really get movies that can be really, really helpful. Clearly, in all the 40-some years since then, there have been so many other pieces of information that have supported what Sheriff Tex Graves first told me, the perpetrators are creatures from outer space. I have no doubt. But just like that complicated statement from that male psychic, a mission to collect tissue and sustenance, that lays out a landscape that is more complicated than just genetic harvesting. And I wish that I had more answers. But out of these dialogues with you and all of your fascinating letters, and for those of you who are willing to talk to me through proton mail or hard mail about your own knowledge serving in the military, serving in intelligence, or your own interactions with other intelligences, I hope that you all keep coming. Tell everybody to subscribe so we can get our subscription number up to 150,000. We're getting closer and closer. And we do that, and I want us to have a champagne party. You all have to go get champagne. I'll have a bottle of champagne. I'll ask Brad to open it up, and we will let it pop, and we'll have a champagne party, and you guys can ask me questions galore for as long as you want. We won't keep it to an hour. And in this dialogue, your letters are so valuable to me. Your communication, and you whistleblowers, you are invaluable. And the one common denominator in the whistleblowers that I have found, they can't believe that the facts that they know, that we're not alone in this universe, has not been shared with the whole human family after 10,000, 20,000, 270 million years. And maybe it's with gatherings like what we do every Wednesday, that we're moving the ball down the court just a little bit more, trying to get that lie that we're alone cracked open to a truth that doesn't mean everything will be wonderful, but it would mean that we would finally maybe be on a planet that wasn't so concocted, was not so easily operated, manipulated, controlled, and dominated by power brokers that might not even be Homo sapiens sapien. And that all of us who have been able to share our stories of high strangeness with each other, maybe everybody would begin to find that the vast majority of children rise up out of their beds at night, that maybe they wander around in the neighborhood, in this other state, that remote viewing is something that maybe everybody could do if the barriers would be lifted, and that humanness is maybe just so extraordinary, and that we need to be able to support each other like an earth village, and we're all in it. And the more we can share truth, the stronger we will be. Down with entropy, up with light. I'll see you next week.